I am muted. Okay. I just said a bunch of nonsense. I said, hello, all that are here. If you're here, tell me your name. Although, don't tell me your name, because it's written in the chat. Unless you're using a fake name, in which case, tell me your name. And then I said, actually, don't tell me your name, because you'd be doxing yourself. So actually, don't tell me anything. And just rely on the name that you have in your chat. Hello, in Cub. Hello, Philippe Auguste. We haven't used today, but I don't know if I should start with a game or if I just should get into it for once. Should I just get into it? Should this be my style? Just getting into it? Ukraine being screwed over. Oh god, Ukraine is getting so screwed over, it's not even funny. The term that I've heard is that, and I completely agree with it, that Ukraine right now is trapped between two empires, which is not a position that anybody wants to be in. As Europe is getting sidelined in the conversations, like this is a situation that Europe should not just allow to happen, but I'm afraid that it might. Yeah. Yeah. Who would have thought? Isn't it? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. What I don't know. It's just sad. It's just sad that they were actually Ukrainian people that thought that maybe Trump would be a change for the better for Ukraine when the writing was on the wall. It's so pathetic that there are so many Americans that voted for Trump and now they're finding out that they're being screwed by him domestically. That's also a thing. We could start with this little, like, as warm up. Let's listen to Donald Trump as warm up, okay? There's a thing that I wanted to show you right off the bat. It's very interesting. It is very interesting to me personally, just how much of a Russian propaganda piece the President of the United States has become. Let me see. Uh, Browser. Eastern Europe will. Well, considering that I live in Poland, I'm not sure if that's the outcome that I'd want. you know, here in Poland. There goes good old games and CD Project. I mean, they have capital. They could always relocate, right? Like worst case scenario, they could actually just relocate. But not everybody will have such possibility. Uh, okay, where's the? Here you go. I want to show you this. Yeah, I'm not even sure if Western Europe or the West in general would stand in defense of Poland if Russia attacked it. I have my doubts, quite honestly. I'm skeptical if the West would defend Poland. We shouldn't even be talking about if Poland being attacked. We should be talking about pushing out all of the Russian forces out of Ukraine. Watch this. Look at this. Check this out.
Um, we're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating, and where a country has been blown to smithereens. You got
Uh, Yeah, Zelensky is not down at 4% approval rating. Hello, greater range. Yeah, I do. Like, this is ridiculous to say. This whole Zelensky is an illegitimate president is a really stupid line. It's a Russian, um, like, it's a Russian smear campaign basically saying that, well, we cannot really deal with Ukraine because Zelensky is an illegitimate president because there's been no election, knowing perfectly well that during wartime there cannot be an election, that millions of Ukrainians are internally and externally displaced, that there are no structures in place to guarantee a safe election for Ukrainian people. If you organized election during wartime, that would be just a prime target for Russians to bomb. Okay?
Most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. The whole, I mean, so many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in
Kyiv also just has good anti-air.
there. They've done it 20%, but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated.
Oh my
They've done
god.
it 20%, but
Did
they
he just actually say that? He actually said it. He actually said if Russia wanted it, it would have just destroyed the entirety of Kyiv, no problem. This is Russian talking points. If Russia really wanted to hurt Ukraine, it would have done it a long time ago. It just doesn't want to.
haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are absolutely decimated. And yeah, I would say that, you know, when they want a seat at the table, you could say the people have to, wouldn't the people of Ukraine have to say, like, you know, it's been a long time since we've had an election? That's not a Russia thing. That's something coming from me and coming from many other countries also.
No, no, it's not something coming out of many other countries also. This is stupid. This is actually about Russia. This is pro-Russian propaganda spouted by the American president that wants to be good friends with Vladimir Putin and Russia. Can you? I mean, technically speaking, it can. The question isn't if it can. The question is if it will, because the individual nation states of the European Union cling to the idea that they are still separate, that they have their own sovereignty, and creating a European army is seen as an um, is seen as breaching that sovereignty, and that's why many countries in the EU oppose the idea of creating a unified European army. That has been the case for years. That's been the chief reason. It should have happened a long time ago. And the streamlining of manufacturing of arms across Europe should have happened a long time ago, but it didn't, and it caused a lot of problems. That's the reality. Like, individual nation states and the European Union shouldn't just increase their um military spending on their own. It should all be coordinated, and it should all be streamlined. The type of equipment that is being used, the type of training that is being given to the soldiers, it should all be interchangeable. A soldier from Germany should be well acquainted with the military equipment of people from Poland. It should be just no problem for them to use that equipment across the board without having any problems. But as it stands, that's just not the case. Even if you have standardized models, standardized systems for artillery, for example, and standard shells, then the individual European Union countries will put their own little tweaks on them, and they will end up incompatible with certain types of artillery systems. It's a huge problem. Because then it's a glorified Franco-German Empire of Europe, or so the Eurosceptics say. I mean, the European Union has a lot of problems that it needs to deal with, a lot, and unfortunately, and the European Union is not even united on the topic of Ukraine. Look at Slovakia, look at Hungary, right? So there you have it. You have Trump openly endorsing Russian propaganda. Zelensky is not a legitimate president because no election, 4% approval. Even though, how would you even organize? Like, he just said it himself that a lot of Ukrainian cities are leveled to the ground. How would you organize elections in a situation like this? Just how? And it's second is, if Russia really wanted to use its all might, then Kyiv would be destroyed. It's just not true. That's just not true. It's stupid to say that. Okay? It's just silly to say that. Yeah? Yeah. So there you go. We've talked a bit about this. This is infuriating. This is really infuriating to see this happen. Like, oh yeah, I promised something. Okay, we're gonna watch this. I promised something, okay? I promised that we watch some Russian state TV, okay? Russian media monitor. It's been a while. Like, let's see how Russia is reacting to let's see how Russia is reacting to Trump. Karen Shaknazarov is delighted that Trump called Putin. Oleg Morozov says Russia protected Trump's reputation. Which one do you want? Sergei Mikheyev says Russia should strike Brussels, London, and Paris. Vladimir Solovyov tells Europeans they should disappear. Evgeny Popov says Trump is doing Russia's job. Okay, let's watch this. Trump is doing Russia's job. I agree, by the way. I agree that Trump is doing Russia's job. So, for once, I am in complete agreement with the Russian state media. Putin couldn't be any happier with Trump, obviously.
Привлекает к себе внимание.
I knew this was gonna happen, and then I did not have any doubts about it. I mean, yeah.
Визит,
Oh yeah, I have to read the subtitles. This is the way.
Привлекает к себе
The visit of the new head of the Pentagon.
внимание визит нового главы Пентагона на
To the Ramstein meeting is attracting attention.
съезд в формате Рамштайн. Что там обсуждают,
What are they discussing there?
если уже заранее
Since the Pentagon already stated in advance.
Пентагон заявил, что никакого нового
That there will be no new weapon delivery package.
пакета вооружений предоставлено Украине. Не то чтобы не будет,
To
но
Ukraine. At least it won't be discussed at Ramstein.
обсуждать его в Рамштайне точно не станут.
Но не зря
It's for a good reason that Americans have unloaded
американцы переложили управление, по сути, председательства именно этой
the chairmanship of this meeting upon Great Britain.
встречи на Великобританию. Впервые это сделано,
It was done for the very first time.
и Великобритания продолжает,
Great Britain continues to arm Kyiv.
собственно, вооружать Киев. Ну вот бывший
Former chair of the Munich Security Conference
председатель, бывший председатель Мюнхенской конференции по безопасности сказал, что европейцам стоит подумать
said that Europeans should think even further ahead
еще дальше и готовиться к тому, что
and get
придется
ready to have to lift sanctions. Oh, see?
снимать санкции, придется восстанавливать
And
отношения
having to restore relations with Russia. Like already certain groups are preparing to just throw Ukraine under the bus and give up.
с Россией, потому что та
Because their bet on continuing and dragging out
ставка на продолжение и затягивание
this
этого
military conflict has not paid off,
военного конфликта, она не оправдала себя, и сейчас,
which is nonsense. Europe will not just lift sanctions. That would be suicide on Europe's part. Now the Europeans will have to carry this conflict alone.
по сути, европейцы вынуждены
Apparently, France is doing an emergency meeting on Ukraine with Norway, Canada, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, the Czech Republic, Greece, Finland, Romania, Sweden, and Belgium. I wonder why Poland is not part of it. But yeah, this is a pretty serious moment. Like it's looking that it'll be all up to Europe now, all up to Europe to step up, all up to Europe to stand up to United States weird demands and to try to support Ukraine in some way. The question is if it can do it. Like that is the big question. If Europe can actually step up and do anything to substantially support Ukraine. And I'm gonna be honest, I have my skepticism. I have my skepticism.
будут тянуть этот конфликт в одиночку, как сказали американцы, приезжающие сюда, их цель
Romania wants to be in the European Union.
переложить, по сути, все это на европейские плечи, поскольку это соседи
One moment.
Европы, по сути, все это на европейские плечи, переложить, по сути, их цель в одиночку, как сказали американцы, в одиночку, как сказали американцы, приезжающие сюда,
Americans that came here have said that their goal is
их цель переложить,
to
по сути,
unload all of this upon European shoulders. I mean, if Europe actually got its act together, it could carry it. But again, the question is if it will. I'm sorry, I have to. Yes.
все это на европейские плечи, поскольку это соседи
Because these are Europe's neighbors.
Европы, и Европе, собственно, с этим
I
и
mean, Europe is the biggest trade partner of the United States, so that's.
разбираться и продолжать,
We will either continue supporting Ukraine
либо продолжать поддерживать Украину, либо как-то
or decide what to do about this from now on.
решать, что делать с этим дальше.
For now, everyone is holding their breath,
Так что пока все замерли в ожидании скорее
waiting for Friday's meeting in Munich.
пятничной встречи в Мюнхене, пятничных встреч.
They will wait and see what Trump decides.
Будут смотреть, что решит Трамп.
For now, they will continue with their usual logic. Like, we already know what Trump decided. Trump decided that it wants 50%, that he wants 50% of all of Ukraine's resources, natural resources.
И пока будут действовать все в той же логике, ждать,
Waiting to see what the guy in charge will say.
что скажет главное, и пытаться как-то
Somehow try to make do.
выкручиваться.
Прошу.
Go ahead.
Ну,
Out
действительно,
of a
из
set of current European events,
текущего европейского событийного блока выделяется по
there
значимости
are three most important tracks.
3 трека. Во-первых, действительно, как правильно
As the report correctly pointed out, the main thing is
и точно в репортаже было отмечено, это визит
the visit of Pete Hegseth to Rammstein.
Питера
He
Хегзета.
also visited Poland, by the way, and there were discussions on the presence of American soldiers in Poland.
На Рамштайн 3 нет, если так
The
можно
free nose on Hegseth.
сказать, Хегзета нет пока по
No to American weapon deliverance to Ukraine.
ставкам военным американским на Украину, нет
No to Hegseth meeting with the Ukrainian delegation
встречи Хегзета с украинской делегацией, кстати, на
in
Рамштайне, и нет вообще
and no to the potential escalation of this war.
в перспективе этой эскалации войны.
I told you the United States were spineless before, the West was spineless before, giving Russia escalation dominance, and now United States are going themselves in the way of the empire, and Ukraine is basically trapped now between two empires with interests that do not align with Ukraine itself. The United States has abandoned the road to even pretending to respect any sort of international law-based order, has abandoned thinking of any sort of well, it's just trying to be an empire now, basically. There's no international cooperation based policy and politics involved here. The United States is a strong empire. It will get what it wants, and it will get it at the cost of its allies. I mean, the Trump administration represents the United States, right? Like, I could be saying the Trump administration, but there's just, like, there's no meaningful difference. It's like I could be saying the Putin administration instead of Russia, right? But it's just the Trump administration represents the United States. So that is the United States that we have right now.
Мы делаем вывод, что
For better or worse. We can draw the conclusion that today,
сегодня главный
the main symbol of America's global policy
символ американской международной политики это вот
is
это вот
Trump's insane, enormously long signature.
безумная, какая-то удивительная километровая роспись Трампа, которая то ли
It
это
looks like a cardiogram of an infirm heart. I'm really a product of empire. I can vote for the president while I'm here.
отчет кардиограммы больного сердца, то ли это отчет, так сказать, какой-то другой, километровая, с этими зубчатыми, прыгающими, так сказать, углами, то есть такая пила.
What a weird way to describe someone's signature, by the way.
То есть Трамп пилит
Trump is sawing through the Western world.
западный мир. Такой кусок
One piece is Canadian, another one is European.
канадский, европейский. Посмотрим, сможет ли
We'll see how successful he'll be with this saw.
он своей пилой, так сказать, не обломать
По сути,
себе
ест
Basically, he's taking our bread and butter.
наш хлеб.
Да.
Это мы хотели пилить
We wanted to saw the Western world into pieces.
западный мир, а он сам его решил
Да.
He decided to saw through it himself. Here you go. He's doing our dirty work for us. They're saying it outright. They're just stating it outright. Donald Trump is just doing our dirty work for us.
распилить.
Вот обломает зубы или нет,
We'll
посмотрим.
see if he breaks his teeth or not.
Удивительное дело,
It's an amazing thing. There you go. It's an amazing thing that Trump is doing our dirty work for us. What we wanted to achieve for so long, Trump's just doing it now. Isn't that great? Isn't that great that Americans voted for this guy? Aren't you happy? Aren't you super glad? I am. I'm super happy. I don't even... What should I say to this? It doesn't matter by how much you won. No, not Gamergate. Not really. Not really. God, this is horrible. Putin is ecstatic with Trump's behavior so far. Ever wonder what the 19th century would look like with 21st century weapons? I mean, for where we are right now, I would put a lot of the blame on the Democratic Party itself, to be honest. How it led its campaign, how it all went. Like, Trump won this campaign because there was a big turnout problem. A lot of people just didn't go to vote. And if they went and possibly voted, then maybe we would not have been in this mess. But they were not incentivized to go and vote. There was a similar problem in Poland during the parliamentary election when people that wanted the Law and Justice Party to go were afraid that people would just not turn out to vote. That people would just not come to vote. That there would be a big problem with people even coming and casting their vote. And it just happened. It happened in the United States. That is exactly what happened. Drama. Live. President Trump briefs on U.S.-Russia talks on Ukraine. I want to watch that. I want to watch that.
There was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I'm only interested. I want to see if I can save
The war in Donbass.
maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're going to end up in World War III
Oh my God.
over something that should have never happened. And, you know, it's a very
You didn't
sad
stop the war in
situation.
Donbass.
In a court filing, the White House said that Elon Musk is not a DOJ employee and has no authority to make decisions. Can you clarify for us today
Well, Elon
what his
Musk-
exact role is? That
Yeah. Elon is, to me, a patriot. So, you know, you could call him an employee, you could call him a consultant, you could call him whatever you want.
Oh my
But he's
God.
a patriot. I mean, look at the kind of things I just
Oh my
said,
God,
write it down,
really?
just in case that question got asked, right? And which I'm surprised it took so long, actually. But you know what? Ukraine's a
maybe it
bigger
is a
deal
bit.
because people are dying by the thousands a week, thousands. But look at this, from 90 to 99, Social Security, 6,054,000 people. Well, that's okay. Maybe that's possible. You know, 90 to 99,
This is
maybe
so
it's
pathetic.
possible. That's a lot of people, though. But people that
He's
live
a
to
patriot.
100 to 109, 4,734,000. Wow, that's a lot.
Call him
That
what you
means
want,
over
but to
100
me,
years
he's a
old. There are 4 million
patriot.
people. I don't know. I don't know too many. I know people
He's
that are
just
doing
a-
great in
he's
their
just a
90s, but not
patriot.
too many people over 100. But over 120, from 120 years old, people that are 120 years old up to 129, 3,472,000 people. Wow. You know, that can't possibly be, because the record is like, I think it's one person, a woman, lived to 127, but they have 3,472. Okay, but now we're going really in. People from 130 years old to 139-year-old, 3,936,000. Wow. I wonder if people are getting paid with all this. I mean, are these checks? And that's what we're checking right now. People from 140
Where
years
did
old
he
to
get this
149
data?
years old,
I don't
3
trust him on
million
this.
542,000
I don't trust him on this.
140 years
I
old.
bet he's misreading this data.
and beyond. Now we're really going, because we're looking to
Russian
break the
TV.
record by 25 years.
Russian
People
Today.
from 150 years old to 159 years old, 1,345,000. These are in the. By the way, these are in the computer files. This is what they do well. They're super. I asked Elon, who are these Doge people? He said they're super brilliant computer people, and they
Oh
love
wow,
the country.
okay. You're super
It's simple.
brilliant computer
Wait a minute.
people.
People from 160 years old to 169 years, 121,000. So 160-year-old people. 170 to 179,000, 6,087. But now,
Hello,
let's go into the
Vladimir.
real numbers.
You forget about World War that's going to cost American taxpayers trillions and trillions of dollars, but look at this thing. Millions and millions of dollars have been spent on Social Security. So sad.
I would worship the ground they walk on. 210 to 219 years, 866. From 220
This
years
can't
old
be.
to
This can't be
229 years old,
referring to age.
1,039. And then you have two people from 240 years old to 249 years old, one person. And there's one person that's 360 years old. That's just that. And then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million
Like I'm really
For a
I would be really
consultant
curious to see this data for myself.
on the environment. It's called environmental, social,
Like I don't believe this for a
and
second.
governance. Investments in Africa and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. That's the
Yeah, just some individual got 500 million. Of course, that's how it works.
most,
Yeah.
I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but they, you know.
Yeah, it's just a single guy that does. He did an environmental study and he just got 500 million for it. Of course, I'm sure that is exactly what happened.
Biodiversity, conservation, and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, 25 million to go into Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. 40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. 42 million. What about us? What about social change in our country? $70 million
What?
for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based.
Like he just didn't have anything to say, so he said, "What about us?" Because he knows that he has zero argument. He's zero argument again about this being a bad thing, so he decided to say, "Oh, we can either do this program or we can do things domestically," which is absolutely not true. This weird framing of we cannot possibly do anything on the global stage because that will act as a detriment to us being able to do anything domestically.
Solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that nobody ever heard about.
Yeah, nobody ever heard of studying on developmental challenges. Nobody. That's such an unknown thing that nobody ever has heard of. Okay? Who would care about developing um, solutions to developmental challenges? Not me. No, nobody has ever heard of that.
22 million for inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova, and $21 million for voter turnout in India. Well, why are we giving $21 million to India? They got a lot of money. They're one of the highest taxing countries in the world in terms of us. We can hardly get in there because their tariffs are so high. I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout.
Him?
It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? We've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes. $20 million for fiscal
I mean,
federalism.
if the turnout in the U.S. would be better, you would not have been president right now. So careful what you wish for.
Nepal. Listen to these numbers. This is all fraud.
Fraud?
$19 million.
Do you know what fraud is? You have not established any fraud. You just don't like where the money is going. You just don't like those programs. And you not liking something does not make it fraud. Just because you don't like the developments of something. Yeah.
For biodiversity conservation. I saw the Social Security numbers. I said, wow.
Wow.
That's really something. So we have, let's just go above 100 years old. We have millions and millions of people over 100 years old. Everybody knows that's not so. We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read is if you take all of those numbers off, because they're obviously fraudulent or incompetent.
I don't trust.
But if you take all of those millions of people off Social Security, all of a sudden we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200 years old. You know, so it's a very positive thing. How about over here? Yeah. Please.
Your reaction to Michelle King, the head, resigning after the Doge?
Who resigned?
The head of Social Security.
I don't know. I mean, I resigned or got fired. I think got fired. You know, when you fire somebody, they always resign. We resigned. But when you have numbers like that, I think really it's got fired. They have to get fired. Who would keep them? How could you have numbers like this? Now, the big thing is, how many of these people got paid? Were they getting paid? Were they getting paid? How many of them were getting paid Social Security? Because if that's the case, it's a massive fraud. We'll have to call those great Palm Beach police into this situation, right? You guys would figure that out very quickly. But how many of them are being paid? I mean, maybe millions of them, but it's a total fraud.
Who are they?
Also, a lot of illegal immigrants are in Social Security that shouldn't be there. Yeah, please.
Oh, so them and immigrants are getting the money.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, there was a big wave of probationary federal workers who were fired over the weekend. Some of these workers focused on nuclear weapon security, were immediately rehired. Do you have any concerns about how these terminations have
No, not at all. I think we have to just do what we have to do.
What does that mean, that answer? Like they were fired and then rehired because they're needed to maintain the nuclear arsenal. And he's like, no, we gotta do what we gotta do. What, we have to fire and rehire people?
You know, you're going to, it's amazing what's been found right now. It's amazing. Yeah, if we feel that in some cases they'll fire people and then they'll put some people back, not all of them.
You're not answering the question.
Let go. Don't forget, I got elected on the basis of making our government stronger and smaller. Because we have millions of people that obviously
He's not answering the
paying
question.
millions of people that shouldn't be paid. And that has also to do with workers. Yeah, please. No, go ahead. Actually, it's New York Times.
Sorry. Mr. President, given your concerns about corruption, you said that if there were any conflicts of interest with Elon Musk, you wouldn't let him anywhere near it.
That's right.
Doge and SpaceX employees are now working directly at the Federal Aviation Administration and the Defense Department, agencies that have billions of dollars in contracts with Musk's companies or that directly regulate his companies. How is that not a conflict of interest?
Well, I mean, I'm just hearing about it, and if there is, and he told me before I told him, but obviously I will not let there be any conflict of interest. He's done an amazing job.
What the
In fact, he's going to be on tonight, a big show called Sean Hannity at
I'm
9
learning
o'clock.
about
and
this.
he's on, and I'm on, and we talk about a lot of different things. And any conflicts, I told Elon, any conflicts, you can't have anything to do with that. So anything to do with possibly even space, we won't let Elon partake in that. Yeah, please.
On immigration, sir, you said you would be sending the worst of the worst to Guantanamo Bay. What we're finding out is that there are a lot of low-risk migrants who don't have a criminal background who are also being sent. Are you thinking about this differently now?
No, they're going to be brought back to their countries. And with some persuasion, every one of those countries, everyone in the, as you know, every country is taking the people back. So some of them are going to be brought back to, many of them, any of them that are low risk, as you said,
Polish people are being
going to be
kicked
brought
out.
back to their countries. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Can you give us a bit of an update on where you stand with Venezuela? It's oil. There's basically a monthly license that can soon extend.
Well, you know, we had Venezuela on the run, and it looked like that was going to be very good. And when Biden came in, as he always does, he screws it up. And they started buying millions and millions and millions of dollars of oil, billions of dollars, actually.
I thought oil was
and it
clean
gave them
and nice.
a new life, a new, really, lease on life. But we'll see. We had some pretty good discussions with a lot of people within our government and the United States government that are involved in that. And Venezuela's a little bit early, but, you know, we were not buying from Venezuela. When Biden came in, for whatever reason, instead of just taking the beautiful, as I call it, liquid gold, we have more than anybody, they started paying a fortune to Venezuela. And we're looking at that, actually. Why did they do that? Why were they doing that? Why would they go to the enemy and give them billions and billions of dollars? Now, with that being said, as you know, Venezuela has said very strongly they will not take any illegal immigrant, any of the people that they sent over to us. They sent their gangs, probably the worst gang anywhere in the world, as bad as MS-13, maybe worse. And they came out of the jails of Venezuela. They emptied their jails into our country. And they said, we'll never take them back. Well, they took them back, and they're taking them back.
Oh,
and
my God.
they are taking them back rapidly. They're sending a lot of people to Venezuela. They said they wouldn't take them back, and they are taking back. But we're looking at Venezuela very seriously, and we're going to be able to. Don't forget, I've only been here for 3 weeks. Yeah, please.
Just a little clarity on, are you inclined to continue to allow Venezuela, through, I think, Chevron and other oil companies, to export those petroleum products, or are you
maybe not
to pull back?
Maybe not. We're looking at that now. I just got
maybe
here.
not.
When I left, they weren't doing anything. They were ready to go. We give up. And then Biden came along and he gave them
World peace
literally
was about to
billions of
happen
dollars.
when Trump was leaving office.
I couldn't believe it, actually. And we have so much under our feet. Liquid gold. We have so much, and it was pretty amazing.
They're
So we're
sending
looking
DEI
at the whole
criminals into
situation,
our
why he
country
did
from
it.
all over the
But how
world.
about one more? Yeah,
Nobody
please.
even knows how much of them, but they're doing
Tell us about
true,
the CIA
true.
drone flights over Mexico. Is this the next step in the war against the cartels?
Well, we're going to see.
Should they have authority to take lethal action?
Mexico's allowed a tremendous number of people to go through their country into ours, and even people coming from Mexico, and illegals, totally illegal. They've allowed people to empty jails into Mexico and then let them come through with this totally ridiculous
Every country in the
open border
world
policy
empties
of
their
the Biden
prison to the United
administration.
States
So,
and mental asylums.
millions of people have come in, and hundreds of thousands, and actually
Billions.
millions are
There you go.
criminals. They came in from jails all over the world that release them into Mexico, and they come into our country. And they also came in from Canada, by the way, large numbers
Millions
from
of
Canada.
prisoners
In
from
fact,
all over the world entering the
when,
country.
When we
And
closed
mental
up
asylum
the one border,
patients.
they came in through the other border. So Canada is not an uninterested party. But I will say this. We're dealing with Mexico. I have a very good relationship with Mexico, but
Yeah, of
I
course
think
I got
Mexico
it.
is largely run by the cartels.
I'm a
and that's
smart
sad thing
political
to say, and,
commentator.
if they wanted help with that, we'd give them help. But Mexico, if you look at what's gone on with Mexico for years now, but now especially, it's run by the cartels, and they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from jails and prisons of other countries from all over the world, not just South America.
Oh yeah,
Africa,
from Poland.
Asia, all over. A lot from
Africa
the Congo
and Asia are
in Africa.
countries
a
now.
lot. They opened their jails. They came in through Mexico, and we have some of the worst criminals coming in from the Congo and other places. So it's not just South America, and it's not just Venezuela, but they opened their jails. And you know the crime rates in Venezuela and other places all over the world has gone way down. You know why? Because they've given us
I think
their
they're pretty
prisoners,
strong in
they've
Mexico,
given us their drug lords and their gang
That's a
members.
problem.
And it's hard to believe that we accepted this. It's hard to believe that we allowed open borders, and we're taking in,
Nobody
hundreds of
understands the
thousands
term
and
open
millions of
borders.
people coming in from
Especially
all over
Trump,
the world that are
okay?
absolute stone-cold
Open
criminals.
borders.
In fact, 11,088 murderers, and many of those people have murdered more than one person. Why are they giving us these people, and why are we taking these people under Biden? You
Wait,
had a
hold
border
on.
czar that never went to the border.
Hold on. Millions of criminals have entered the country. Millions of criminals from jails from all over the world have entered the country. But out of those millions of criminals, 11,000 murders happened. 11,000 out of millions. I'm gonna be honest. That is actually a pretty good statistics on all things considered, isn't it?
Happened to be a vice president, never went to the border, never called the border people. I call them all the time. I speak to them all the time. But here's the good news. We have the most secure border we've ever had right now. As secure and even more secure than I had it 4 years ago. And the Border Patrol is doing incredible. ICE is doing incredible. Tom Homan's unbelievable, and Kristi Noem has
Swiping
been
people off the
just
street.
working very,
ICE
very
is
hard.
great.
Very, very hard. And we have the best numbers we've ever had, and we're going to keep it that way. And we're going to find out how a thing like this could have happened to our country, because who would allow this to happen?
Biden allowed
What they've
it to
done to our
happen.
country is so sad. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please.
Mr. President, have you decided specifically what the auto tariff rate should be?
Yeah, I probably will tell you that on April 2nd, but it'll be in the neighborhood of 25%.
What about semiconductors and pharmaceuticals?
It'll be 25% and higher, and it'll go very substantially higher over a course of a year. But we want to give them time to come in because, as you know, when they come into the United States and they have their plant or factory here, there is no tariff. So we want to give them a little bit of a chance. Yes, thank you.
The EU, Andrea Shalom, the EU representative is going to be here in Washington next week. Tomorrow. He's going to be meeting with Hassett and Greer and Letnick. What can the EU do to sort of avoid the reciprocal tariffs that you've talked about? And, you've talked a lot about the VAT. Do you expect them to reduce that?
Trade wars with Europe.
Well, they did already, as I understand it, reduce their car tariff all the way down to what we have. And a lot of that will take place, and I think some won't do it and some will do it. But the EU had a 10% tax on cars, and now they have a 2.5% tax, which is the exact same as us. So already we've saved a tremendous amount. That would be great. If everybody would do that, then we'd all be on the same playing field. Because essentially what we're doing with the tariffs is, they charge us, we charge them, same amount. And it's called reciprocal, actually. And whatever they charge us, we're charging them. And so the EU is, I appreciate that they did this, but, the EU has been very unfair to us. We have a deficit of $350 billion. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm products. They don't take almost anything. They take very little. And we're going to have to straighten that out, and we will. I have no doubt about it. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Russia talks, your impression of how they went today, and if you're perhaps more confident or less confident of a deal after what happened today?
Well, much more confident. They were very good. Russia wants to do something. They want to stop the savage barbarianism. I mean, what's going on over there? It's soldiers are being killed by the thousands.
Russia's
on a weekly
doing the
basis.
barbarism.
It's ridiculous. And they're not American soldiers. They're Russian soldiers, and they're Ukrainian soldiers largely, although a lot of Koreans have been killed, as you know. Quite a bit of them have been killed.
Who
They came
allowed the
over to
Koreans
fight,
to
and a
come into
large
the
portion
conflict?
have been wiped out. But we want to end it. It's a senseless war. It should have
Who
never happened. It would have
started
never
it?
happened if I was president. And it's a shame to see it. And I see pictures that you don't see, but I see pictures of fields that look just horrible. It looks like Gettysburg. If you see the old pictures of Gettysburg, it's soldiers lying all over the field, body parts all over the field. They're all dead. And this is going on a daily basis. It's a horrible thing. Both Russia and Ukraine, they're losing thousands and thousands of soldiers, and a lot of people have been killed too. I think that's one of the things that you'll see historically, and you'll see later on as it goes along. I think people are going to be surprised at how many people, not only soldiers, have been killed in Ukraine.
By Russia.
A lot more people than you think. Yeah, please.
By Russia.
President Trump, as part of a peace deal with Putin, would you be willing to consider removing all American troops from Europe?
Oh my God.
Well, nobody's asked me to do that, so I don't think we'd have to do that. I wouldn't want to do that. But that question's never really come up. Yeah. Please.
Sir, do you support stationing European peacekeeping troops in Ukraine as part of this peace deal?
If they want to do that, that's great. I'm all for it. If they want to do that, I think that'd be fine. I mean, I know France has mentioned it. Others have mentioned it. UK has mentioned it. But yeah,
the UK is not part of the European
Union.
Union.
Having troops over there from the standpoint of Europe, we won't have to put any over there because, we're very far away. But having troops over there would be fine. I would not object to it at all. We're talking about this now, peace. We have either a ceasefire or a peace itself, and we're looking to do both. We'd start off with the ceasefire.
What do you mean?
If they want to do that. I know France was willing to do that, and I thought that was a beautiful gesture. Yeah, please.
You had troops in
Message
Japan.
for Ukrainians who, after 3 years of fighting, might feel betrayed or disappointed at not having a seat at these initial talks in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think I'm really disappointed in what's happened. I've been watching this for 3 years. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, and I've been watching these people being killed at levels that you've rarely seen.
Who
not
started
even
the
close
war?
Since the Second World War. And I'm very disappointed. I hear that, they're upset about not having a seat. Well, they've had a seat for 3 years and a long time before that. This could have been settled very easily. Just a half-baked negotiator could have settled this years ago.
Well, why didn't you settle the conflict in the Donbass? Why didn't you settle that? That was much smaller and much easier to contain for a deal breaker such as yourself. No, deal maker.
I
actually agree with him. The fact that Ukraine is barbarically killing beautiful Russian soldiers is horrific. That would be to have never started if Trump had been president. Wait a minute. He's the president. True.
Scam. Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. I want to ask you a little closer to home. What would it take for you to reconsider the restrictions on the Associated Press? And secondly, some of your advisors are concerned with the Associated Press's style guide, using language and giving guidance to not use words like illegal immigrant or to use phrases like gender-affirming care. And they're concerned about that being an encroaching amount of liberalism in the way in which the press writes about things. Do you share those concerns?
Well, I do think that some of the phrases that they want to use are ridiculous, and I think, frankly, they become obsolete, especially in the last 3 weeks, because many things have happened in the last 3 weeks, and I didn't know about that, but I would say that if they want to use certain phrases like that, and I guess some are okay, but many aren't.
Which are
but
not.
The Associated Press just
which are okay and
refuses
which are
to
not.
go with what the law is and what is taking place. It's called the Gulf of America now. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even challenging that. But only essentially, it's primarily the Associated Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be the Gulf of America. Now, this Associated Press, as you know, has been very, very wrong on the election, on Trump and the treatment of Trump and other things having to do with Trump and Republicans and conservatives. And they're doing us no favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors. That's the way life works. But, you know, thank you for the question. Who are you with? Very good question. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I know.
We're hearing that Russia wants to force Ukraine to hold new elections in order to sign any kind of a peace deal. Is that something that the U.S. would ever support?
Well, we have a situation where we haven't had elections in Ukraine, where we have martial law, or essentially martial law in Ukraine, where the leader in Ukraine, I mean, I hate to say it, but he's down at 4% approval rating.
His approval rating is between 47% and 52%. So that is a complete lie. He's not at 4%. We all know why the election is not happening. There's martial law. There are millions of refugees. I've done this clip at the start of the stream. I've explained it. How would you organize the election at this time without just risking that the people voting will be killed by Russia? Like, this is ridiculous. This is just a Russian talking point. Russia has been intensifying this talking point recently, and it is very sad and disappointing to see that the head of the United States is openly, eagerly adopting this talking point. Thank you.
And where a country has been blown to smithereens, you got most of the cities are laying on their sides. The buildings are collapsed. It looks like a massive demolition site. The whole, I mean, so many of the cities. I mean, they haven't done it in Kiev because I guess they don't want to shoot too many rockets in there.
But the pronunciation is telling
20%,
well.
but they haven't done it 100%. If they wanted to do it 100%, it would probably happen very quickly. But you have cities that are
I still love how he says if Russia wanted to destroy Kyiv, they would just destroy it. If Russia really used their full power, they just destroy Kyiv, anti-air defense or not. Mr. President, why is Russia invading still another so-called country named Ukraine? Why is it still happening when you've been elected? Trump responds, oh, I don't know. I just want our money secure. True. Do you think someone else prominent would be a better president than Zelensky? I mean, Zelensky is doing a pretty good job as a wartime president, which is why Russia hates him so much, which is why Russia is clinging to the whole there has not been an election thing.
That's a very much smaller percentage than that. I think Europe has given 100 billion, and we've given, let's say, 300 plus. And
the U.S. has not given 300 billion plus. And a lot of what the U.S. has given, quote unquote, has gone into the U.S. Weapons industry, not to Ukraine.
It's more important for them than it is for us. We have an ocean in between, and they don't. But where is all the money that's been given? Where is it going? And I've never seen an accounting of it.
There is an accounting, first of all. And second of all, a lot of it is going to replenish the old equipment that the U.S. is giving to Ukraine. It's going to giving jobs to the people working at the weapons manufacturing. It's going to the manufacturing itself of brand new weapons that will replenish the U.S. stock. That is where it's primarily going. And it's not some secret knowledge. It's pretty basic knowledge, actually.
We give hundreds of billions of dollars. I don't see any accounting. So I want to see peace. Look.
So this is ridiculous.
You know why I want? Because I don't want all these people killed anymore. I'm looking at people that are being killed. And they're Russian and Ukrainian people, but they're people. Doesn't matter where they're from on the whole planet. And I think I have the power to end this war.
Crap.
And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there.
We have the power now to give Ukraine over to Russia on a silver platter. Who cares if they'll be dying in occupied territory, tortured, killed, etc. At least they'll not be dying in a war.
For 4 years, it didn't happen. It was never going to happen. Go ahead.
Follow-up question. How would you counter the perception, because Russia's pushing for this, obviously, they don't really hold true elections, that would be a capitulation of some sort. How would you guard against potentially Russia installing a puppet government? And then finally, how would that new election have an impact on getting Zelensky to sign the rare earth minerals deal?
Look, you have leadership, and I like him personally. He's fine. But I don't care about personally. I care about getting the job done. You have leadership now that's allowed a war to go on that should have never even happened, even without the United States. Look, we had a president who was grossly incompetent. He had no idea what he was doing. He said some very stupid things, like going in for portions and all of the things. He made a lot of bad statements, but he's grossly incompetent, and I think everyone knew that. This is something that should have never happened, would have never happened. And I used to discuss it with Putin. President Putin and I would talk about Ukraine.
What does that have to do with the
apple of his eye,
question?
I will tell you that.
Nothing.
But there was never a chance of him going in. And I told him, you better not go in. Don't go in. Don't go in. And he understood that. He understood it fully.
He was already in, you idiot. When you were president, the Donbass conflict was already going. He was already in.
But I'm only interested. I want to see if I can save maybe millions of lives. This could even end up in a World War III. I mean, to be honest with you, you've been hearing...
So he doesn't care if Russia installs a puppet government. I'll just take that from the answer, okay? If he refuses to answer this very straightforward question, then the answer has to be, I just don't give a damn if Russia installs a puppet government. That's the only conclusion that I can come to.
Now Europe is saying, well, I think we're going to go in and we're going to go. All of a sudden, you're going to end up in World War III over something that should have never happened. And, you know, it's a very sad situation. Answer. Yeah, please.
In a court filing, the White House said that
Elon Musk just cannot answer any substantial question beyond, oh, if I were president, it never would have happened, even though the conflict of Ukraine has been happening when he was president. Why else would Russia want an election right now? Why else would Russia push for an election right now so hard, if not to try to install its own favorable people in Ukraine? Think about it as I go grab a drink. Or something, like, I don't know, the way the United States is handling this peace process is really pathetic. I mean, pathetic is not an accurate word, but I'm hating the timeline that we're living in, sincerely.
1,345,000. These are in the, by the way, these are in the computer files. This is what they do well.
I'm really hating this timeline.
I asked Elon, who are these dudes?
Yeah. Saudi dialogue, the inside story.
Seems to vacillate between one policy and the other on a weekly basis. US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's comments in Brussels about Ukraine and NATO membership were reversed in a matter of hours. So things, you know, can continually change. And we heard, indeed, the Ukraine and Russia envoy Keith Kellogg say that Europe wouldn't be part of peace talks. But then the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz today in Saudi Arabia said that they should be and they would be. So a lot is constantly moving. Is this the art of the deal, the art of high negotiation? Possibly, but you can't really call people's bluff or make sleight of hand when it comes to basic things like geopolitical security between Europe and Russia. Putin will see weakness there, he'll see opportunity, and I think that's what's got so many European leaders so deeply concerned. It's exactly how Moscow interprets this and what possible space for manoeuvre it sees.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Putin's already seen some opportunity unfold in just the last week and a half. Nick Payton-Walsh, thank you so much.
A pivotal meeting between the U.S. Secretary of State and his Russian counterpart that didn't include Ukraine. One World starts right now. Marco Rubio says his boss is the only man who can bring about a sustainable end to the war in Ukraine. And targeted by Trump, meet the student activists who fear the backlash of the president. And later, stunning new images of the Toronto plane crash. Somehow, everyone on board managed to survive.
Let's watch the Russian turnabout.
Hello, everyone. Live from New York, I'm Bianca Rodriguez. Zayn is off today. You are watching One World. Well, after a meeting lasting nearly 5 hours at a palace in Riyadh aimed at ending the war in Ukraine, high-ranking U.S. and Russian officials have agreed to keep the conversation going. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warns it's a non-starter after his country wasn't invited to its own peace talks. The U.S. is describing the discussions as positive. Russia was a bit more measured, calling them useful, but said it's an accomplishment that dialogue...
Once I told you, Trump has a precedent of having peace talks above the country that is part of the peace talks. Like, Ukraine is being excluded from the conversations about its own future. The Ukrainian people are being excluded from being able to decide their own fate. The thing that everybody had been worried would happen is happening. It's unfolding before our very own eyes.
For potentially, quote, historic economic and investment opportunities. But he also warned that ending Russia's war in Ukraine will require concessions from all sides. U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz was a bit more blunt, saying the discussions will involve territory and security concerns.
There you go.
Russia's foreign minister, meanwhile, blamed the former Biden administration for, in his words, the conflict emerging. And he said the new administration has started to understand Russia's side of the argument. Now, as I said, President Zelensky was not at the table today. He's now postponing his own visit to Saudi Arabia until early next month.
Translation. Biden's administration was not an empire that wanted to screw over Ukraine together with Russia, and the Trump administration is more on board with doing that.
Nearly 3 years ago to the day, we've seen such high-level talks between both countries' sides. I know you spoke with Russian officials there in Riyadh. Tell us what they said to you.
Yeah, well, I think, Danny, you're right about that. I mean, for a long time now, particularly over the past 3 years, Moscow has wanted to get back to the top table of international diplomacy. It is very
Russia has been waiting for this, and already certain restrictions on Russia are being lifted, by the way.
With the U.S. administration and the possibility of a summit meeting between President Trump of the United States and President Putin. This is a sort of rehabilitation that the Kremlin could only dream of just months ago. And so that's one way in which, in Moscow, they'll be celebrating these events tonight. The other way, of course, is that the overarching objective of Russia over the past several years, even before the war in Ukraine, is to sow disunity and to see Western unity shattered over Ukraine and over other issues as well. And the fact that President Trump is now driving so rapidly a peace deal face-to-face with the Russians over Ukraine, the Russians are seeing that Western unity unfold in front of them. And so, regardless of what
everybody has been afraid of this,
table, whether they get sanctions lifted, whether they get economic cooperation of the kind that's being discussed by both sides now,
if the sanctions get lifted, it's over.
It's just over. From this process,
Ukraine's being
with
sold
a win,
out.
and that means a lot in Moscow. Yana.
Matthew Chance, thank you so much. Let's go to CNN's Kevin Liptak, who joins me now live from Washington. Kevin, how is the president viewing all of this? It's been, we have to say, a whirlwind. It's just a week ago that we found out about a phone conversation between President Trump and President Putin, and then after that followed a conversation between President Trump and President Zelensky. And here we are having high-level talks between these two countries that, as we just noted, hadn't spoken to
Ukraine
each other
over
in
for
3
minerals.
years over 3 years' time. And we know that President Trump has
Ukraine is
talked
going to
about
be
the fact
punished
that he
for
would like
being
to see
invaded.
in the near future,
That is where this
perhaps
is
a
headed.
summit between these two leaders.
Ukraine
Yeah,
being just
it's head
severely
spinning
punished
almost
for
just
being
to see how
invaded.
rapidly this thaw is unfolding between Washington and Moscow after so many years of really a silence between the two capitals. And I think it reflects what Marco Rubio said today was Trump's impatience at bringing this conflict to an end. Certainly, he had made the promise as a candidate to end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours of taking office. Obviously, that deadline came and went, but it still remains the case that he is in a hurry to see this conflict end. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing now. This rushed meetings to try and set up these talks with the Russians. I think it certainly reflects
it doesn't matter if the
President
war
Trump's
ends
desire
now.
to bring
Like,
Vladimir
it's going to
Putin
be
back
a war that
into the diplomatic fold,
millions
including
of people will
potentially,
suffer from
as
this
he
peace.
raised last week, allowing
and possibly Russia will
back
just
into the
rebuild and
G8,
try again.
including setting up
so this is
summit
not a
talks,
peace
with
that is
Putin that could
acceptable
potentially happen
for any reasonable
very, very quickly
party.
now that this initial meeting
Problem is that the
has
United
taken place.
States
And I think it was interesting,
not a
just
reasonable
listening
party
to the
anymore.
American officials heading into this summit, they were pretty insistent that it would be limited to the issues of the Ukraine war, talking about the parameters and contours of a potential ceasefire in Ukraine. Listening to them afterwards, it was clear that they talked about much more, including allowing diplomats to return to Moscow and Washington. The embassies in those countries had really been stripped down to skeleton staffs after these tit-for-tat expulsions over the last
This is
several
like
years.
observing
Now they're talking about
Polish
boosting the
Lithuanian
diplomatic
Commonwealth
staffs
being
in each of those
by
countries.
Russia,
They also talked about
Russia
the
and Austria.
potential for economic development between the U.S. and Russia, clearly with an eye towards President Trump's focus on American investments, on American energy. And I think it was notable that one of the people at the table was the president of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund, clearly with an eye towards President Trump's
that depends on
economic
Europe,
focus.
actually.
So all of these issues, I think, give you a sense
if Europe
of
doesn't do
how,
anything to
certainly
meaningfully
the
support
Russian
Ukraine,
side
then
knows
Zelensky might
exactly
be
what it's
forced to
presenting to the
concede.
Americans as
Like,
they
it's
look
all
to
up to
move
what
forward
Europe
to this.
does
But
now.
certainly it has left President
Everything's,
Zelensky and the
on
Europeans
Europe
feeling
now.
left out. I think when you listen to the American side, they say this is just a matter of sequencing, that there will be discussions with the Ukrainians going forward. Just as an example, the envoy, President Trump's envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, will be arriving in Kyiv tomorrow morning for a lengthy stay there to talk with the Ukrainians about all of this going forward. We're also learning that the British Prime Minister will be in Washington next week to meet with President Trump. So their argument is that this is a question of sequencing, that there will be these discussions going forward with all sides. But certainly watching the Americans and the Russians at that table in Riyadh without the Europeans and without the Ukrainians, certainly a striking visual.
Yeah, it's
But not
clear that
unpredictable
both President
considering
Zelensky
the
and the
cabinet.
Europeans don't just view this as a sequencing of events here. They are clearly concerned about how this is happening so quickly without Ukraine there at the table or a European presence. Kevin Liptak in Washington for us. Thank you. Well, before today's talks in Riyadh, the Kremlin launched a series of drone attacks on Ukraine overnight, seeking to weaken Ukraine's defenses and degrade its energy infrastructure in these frigid months. The Ukrainian Air Force says that it was able to shoot down more than 100
Russia
of the
really wants
176
peace
drones
when it
launched
bombs
by Russia.
cities every day.
As the Trump administration is holding those talks with Russia in Riyadh, world leaders convened in Paris on Monday, vowing to step up support for Ukraine.
It's all up to Europe now.
Europeans willing to step up, getting positively engaged, willing to help out in Ukraine post a peace deal, including with troops if necessary, but clearly with an American backup.
Here we
CNN's
go.
Nick Payton-Walsh joins us
I'm
now
so afraid
from
of this.
Kyiv with more on this.
With American
Nick,
backup.
we've been
If
covering
Europe
the
cannot deal
war,
with it without American
and
backup, we're all
for
screwed. There is
almost
no
3
American
years
backup.
now,
Time to wake
and
up.
You've been talking
There is
to
no
civilians
American
there,
backup.
Ukrainians who have
That
long
time has
been
passed.
seeking an end to the war more than anyone else impacted here. You could argue they have real skin in the game and have lost thousands of
that's over.
lives in
There is
the
no
course of
American
the last
backup.
3 years. It's a nuanced issue, I know. There are concerns about corruption, about how long this war will go on, even about President Zelensky.
All that
and when there
America
could
wants is to
inevitably be
milk
some
Ukraine for
elections
resources
in the
at this
country
point.
now that it's still under martial law. But when they see how things are playing out over the course of the last week in terms of bringing this war to an end without Ukraine right now at the table. What are you hearing from Ukrainians about how they feel right now?
I think there has been
Scared,
noticeable
disappointed.
anxiety here in Ukraine over the last 10 days to a week.
The
Because
more
not
to
only
the
has the
east,
Trump
the more
administration
anxiety you get,
seemed less
obviously.
committed to Ukrainian security, and they sort of vacillate over that. You know, today we heard National Security Advisor Mike Waltz talking about the necessity of Ukraine being involved in this, talking while he also said territorial concessions are part of the reality, security guarantees are too, and that latter part will potentially be something Kiev wants to hear more about. But we've heard the Trump administration also seemingly in Munich and Brussels revise their concept of the US role in European security, a much wider issue in general, and without European security there is very little chance that Ukraine can fend off Russia too without American and European backing. So that's contributed to a sense, I think, of anxiety and general nervousness here. Yes, the Europeans are racing to try and come up with some kind of assistance that they can afford, that is practical, that is a deterrent against Russia. Indeed, but
Europe
Zelensky's
can
comments
afford
today
it.
where
Affording
he,
is not the
angrily,
problem
but
here.
pretty forcefully
The problem
cancelled
is
his visit
logistics.
to
The problem
Saudi
is
Arabia because he
manufacturing
said
of weapons.
basically
The
things were
problem is
occurring without
having
Ukraine's
a
involvement.
functional
He didn't
army.
really, I think it seems they see the point of continuing with a plan to go there on a pre-planned meeting that wasn't necessarily
The problem
involved
isn't
in the US
being able to
summit,
afford
but may
it.
have hoped to glean something out of it.
Europe
It's
can afford
reflecting
it.
the wider anger, I think, in Ukraine that they are seeing this US-Russia summit much more about relations between Moscow and Washington.
Yep.
And so
Correct.
that's left the notion of a Ukrainian peace plan as something potentially that forms part of a wider deal between Trump and Putin that essentially
Empires
the
are
core
dealing
of all
among
that they're about
themselves,
right
leaving
now.
the small
Another interesting
peons
thing we heard today
to
was
deal
from
with
Russian Foreign
the
Minister Sergei Lavrov,
decisions made.
who outright rejected one of the key planks of what we're beginning to hear repeatedly could be part of a peace plan, which is peacekeepers along the front line. Now, the Kellogg plan, that's Ukraine's envoy from the Trump administration, written back in April when he was a private citizen, suggested that non-US troops might potentially be involved in a peacekeeping mission between Ukraine and Russia. Hazardous, perilous, even in a ceasefire. But
The
Lavrov
US
said
has already
today that,
announced
no,
it would send
simply
no
they would not
troops.
tolerate the idea of NATO
No troops
or
to
even
Ukraine
NATO member troops under
as
a non-NATO mandate being in that position. He might be negotiating, they might be willing to tolerate that in the end, but we're into a very messy situation here where the Europeans have been scrambling over the past days to pull together a peacekeeping force that was America's idea that Russia may outright reject. That's where a place where nobody, I think it's fair to say, really thought they would be or
Yeah,
wanted
Russia
to be.
does
But
not want a
Ukrainians here are
Ukraine that
faced
can
with two
defend
issues.
itself. It's time to
Firstly,
also
there's
wake
the
up
fact
to that. I
some
cannot
of these
believe that
peace
people are so
talks
shocked.
Don't come up with a ceasefire or freeze the front lines, the more land they lose, and the greater potential that they face of manpower crisis on their own front lines. They're not doing well on the front and haven't for quite some time. The second element is that a bad peace deal, or one that is essentially the US forcing concessions by Ukraine in Russia's favour, is exactly what they want to avoid as well. And this growing uncertainty about Europe's place in all of this and the Trump administration's backing for Ukraine, leaving everyone here deeply anxious.
Yeah,
No,
and,
not really.
this
Russia's
idea
really getting
of
what it
European
wants right now.
peacekeepers in Ukraine. I mean, so far, Nick, I believe it was only the
US
UK,
will not
the
send
Prime
any
Minister
peacekeeping
Starmer
force,
there, who had
and
even suggested that
Europe
they may be
can
willing
barely
to do so,
send
and that
any.
was
So
followed
what
quickly
sort of
by British military officials
what sort of
that
guarantees
said
does Ukraine
that
have
due
right
to
now?
years
None.
of budget cuts,
What
they
will
don't
stop
even think
Russia
they have
from
the
attacking
manpower. They're
again?
not equipped
Nothing.
for such a long-term, large operation like bringing troops over into Ukraine. But I guess the bigger question is, no matter what European troops may ultimately become peacekeepers, without a U.S. backstop, does it even really matter?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a bit harsh to suggest that the Europeans aren't equipped to take on Russia without any American support, but it's pretty close to the reality, because essentially NATO has been built around the idea of the most powerful military in the world having a series of well-financed European democracies assisting it too, often with smaller forces. Europe's never really been a continent where the idea of another land war has been conceived of, and that's what made the Russian invasion, second invasion of Ukraine in 2022 quite so jarring. And the concept that the American logistics, air power, the sheer volume of force that the United States can bring in terms of troops and equipment to a fight like that would not be available to Europe, has obviously left many Europeans in a
if
state
US
of
withdraws
acute
support,
anxiety. Yes, they
then
can do
Ukraine
something,
just left on
certainly.
its
Yes,
own.
they can get into the fight,
Like,
but there's no way
no security
really they can
guarantees
hold
whatsoever.
off a rejuvenated,
No whatsoever.
refurbished, refitted Russian military, were they in some state in the future to push again forwards through Ukraine. So it's a massive recalibration of the concept of security on the continent, one that may possibly be short-lived in that, the Trump administration seems to vacillate between one policy and the other on a weekly basis. US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth's comments in Brussels about Ukraine and NATO membership were reversed in a matter of hours. So things, can continually change, and we heard indeed the Ukraine and Russia envoy Keith Kellogg say that Europe wouldn't be part of peace talks, but then the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz today in Saudi Arabia said that they should be and they would be. So
it's looping now. All right, Asmongold TV. I hate that Asmongold is talking about politics now. Like I really hate how I hate it, and you see here, Trump blames Ukraine for starting war. I just hate the fact that Ukraine is being actively blamed and is going to be, from the looks of it, punished for being invaded. Like this whole deal for minerals, for resources, it's nothing else than Ukraine paying the cost for being invaded. There's no such demand on Russia. There's no Russia, let's make a deal and we're demanding 50% of your resources. Ridiculous.
Agreed to that. And what was your second question? I forget.
Let's watch him.
The statements of the
first question.
Of forces, armed forces, direct threaten to, and that Trump for the conflict emerging, and this was the fault of Biden and his administration, and that Trump, as president, would not allow that. In that connection,
there you go. Russia's just as Trump is parroting Russia's rhetoric, Russia is now parroting Trump's rhetoric, because he's giving Russia what they want. So they will say, oh yeah, of course, if Trump would be president, this would not have happened. It's all the fault of Biden that we invaded. We were forced to invade Ukraine by Joe Biden.
We explained to our colleagues that President Putin has stressed on a number of occasions that the decision of NATO to swallow up Ukraine is a direct threat to Russia's sovereignty.
There was no plan to allow Ukraine into NATO. There were all countries in NATO have to agree to accept a member, and there were countries that were against it. So there was never an option for Ukraine to get into NATO. So this is a nonsensical excuse for the invasion.
And therefore, we explained today that the appearance of forces, armed forces, from the same NATO countries, but under some other flag, the flag of the EU or national flags, doesn't change anything. And of course, that's unacceptable.
Translation: we had an excuse, a flimsy excuse to invade. We took it, we invaded. And now we can blame Joe Biden because that's the stance that the United States are taking. And now we like the United States because Donald Trump is giving us exactly what we want. We've been waiting for this. They've been literally waiting for this opportunity.
The position in the Kubani, Donetsk.
Russia truly is being handed the best possible outcome on a silver platter right now.
What about the involvement of the EU at the negotiating tables? Well, as far as the latest move is concerned about the energy situation in Kazakhstan or using Kazakhstan energy, I think you can see a lot of reasons here, or guess what lies at the root of all that. Orders given by Kiev, for example, but this should strengthen everybody in their opinion that this situation simply cannot continue, that this man and his team must see reason.
Translation: Europe should stop supporting Ukraine, and Ukraine should just capitulate. It's as simple as that. Simple as that.
Maybe our US colleagues can actually bring in a kind of moratorium on these energy supplies. But we have never jeopardized the supply of energy to the population, and it would seem that his plan is simply to directly help the armed forces of Ukraine. There was the question of a Black Sea deal with Turkey.
I mean, Russia's bombing the Ukrainian electric grid on the daily, so.
And to make sure that sites were protected, we agreed to that. And what was your second question? I forget. The statements of the EU about being present at the negotiating table. I don't know, but the negotiations are afoot. Romania said something recently. I don't want to guess.
Translation: we don't know or care for the president of Ukraine to be present at the negotiation table because we actually want to negotiate this thing with the US directly. Without Ukraine, Ukraine will just have to deal with what we decide. The big empires are talking, small little Ukraine will just take what it gets. Thank you. I have translated this jargon to you, to very easy to understand words.
Ukraine has said that it wouldn't acknowledge the outcome of the talks between Russia and the US. What do you think about that?
They have no
well,
choice.
I don't think we need to go into detail about that because the subject was discussed in detail by President Putin, and I think there's an end to it.
Translation: we will finish these talks with or without Ukraine. Ukraine is hopeless and helpless without the United States' help, so it will take exactly what the United States will give them. And again, unless Europe steps up in a significant way, that is the situation. Ukraine is at the mercy of its allies. Without substantial support from Europe, whatever the United States decides the peace will be, it will be. It's as simple as that. Ukraine is now sandwiched between two empires. That is the reality that we have found ourselves in, unfortunately.
What should Russia do to prevent Ukraine torpedoing the resumption of relations between Russia and USA?
Resumption of those relations is death sentence for Ukraine, by the way. Lifting sanctions, not promising any security guarantees to Ukraine, territory concessions, and also demanding horrible deals from Ukraine on resources. Keep in mind that straining Ukrainians' economy during a freeze of the conflict would not allow Ukraine to arm itself and maintain an army, and would de facto just allow Russia to rebuild and attack again.
Well, I think that we cannot allow any torpedoing of our relations with the US. We have to actually resume them, get them back on track. We discussed
Translation: this is not about figuring out a just peace with Ukraine. A just peace is completely insignificant. What this is about is getting back to business as usual between the United States and Russia, and possibly working together to undermine China. Hello, fake Alec Carl Parker. Ukraine is the bone in the throat between the US and Russia. It's sad, but it's true. I'm sorry. Right now, it seems like the talks are not even about a just peace, but they're about going back to business.
Absolutely not everything that separates us, but we did decide on an approach which was based on the telephone calls between our two presidents, and we felt the full determination on the part of our American colleagues to move forward as the presidents told them to, and we will be working on that. Thank you. Talks with the U.S. administration, Marco Rubio in particular.
And there we have it. There we have the status of the peace. How do we feel? How does everybody feel about the state of the world that we have found ourselves in? Where Ukraine is being that we have found ourselves in, sold out for the sake of peace and stability of world society. What does that feel? It won't be a real... No, it won't. Ukraine will not receive any security guarantees. It will be a farce. It's looking to be a farcical peace. That's right. Hold on. Oh yeah, I have to go to... There we go. There we go. All this is going to do is to tell Putin that he can go for Poland next. Yeah. So if you don't want me to die, then donate. How long do you predict Russia will rearm and attack again? It's just a couple of years. It depends. Depends on how, if the sanctions will be lifted. It's ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. And like a lot of it depends on what Europe will do. Okay, I keep saying this like a broken record. It all depends on what Europe does now. If Europe does not step up now, then it's basically just a wash. It's over. Okay. If Europe doesn't stand up, then we're all screwed. Yeah, but the problem is, like, even if Russia's economy is in a bad situation, and it is, by the way, it doesn't change the fact that if a powerful country like the United States steps in and says, well, Ukraine, you're just going to have to give Russia all that it wants, territory, and we're going to impose very bad deals on you on resources. And by the way, we're not gonna give you, NATO is out of the question for you. And also, we're not gonna send any American troops as a peacekeeping force. And Europe can muster no real peacekeeping force as well. And at that point, if Europe or the US or both start lifting sanctions, then Russian economy would start recovering. So what are we? It's, yeah, that is where we are. That is where we are, unfortunately. Trump much more confident in peace. Russia talks. And already we have also articles like this. No country bordering Russia should send troops to Ukraine, says Polish defense minister. Already countries are arguing over not sending troops to Ukraine, even though in my opinion Poland should actually absolutely send troops to Ukraine. Poland's defense minister has said that no country bordering Russia should send a peacekeepers to Ukraine, as the move could stir further tensions with Moscow. There you go. We're just afraid. We're so afraid of making Russia mad that we cannot defend Ukraine properly. This is the stupidest thing ever. Still, even in the face of this horrible peace happening, still European countries are too afraid to do anything. We cannot do anything. It's Russia's. Russia might just get angry. Poland's defense minister, speaking to private broadcaster Polsat News on Tuesday, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz reiterated Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk's position that Warsaw has no plans to send peacekeeping troops to Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire. There you go. It's pathetic. Poland should be completely among the countries. I think, in fact, Poland should be sending troops now, not as a peacekeeping force. Cowardice works with Russia, right? Yeah, it works in Russia's favor, definitely. No, Kosiniak-Kamysz is not a peace guy. That not only Law and Justice has pathetic people in it. Poland is certainly not sending and will not be sending troops to Ukraine, he said, adding, "We have to secure NATO's eastern flank." Ukraine should be NATO's eastern flank, you idiot. Like, I'm sorry that people don't get this. Like, this is what I'm talking about. We cannot help Ukraine because we have to secure our flank. You know what would be the best security of the flank? A strong Ukraine that can defend itself against Russia, making sure that Russia will not be able to attack Ukraine again would be the best possible security for NATO's eastern flank. But people are just too stupid to see it, or just cannot see it. At this point, like the United States are not, it's just the United States are a cynical actor that wants to milk Ukraine for what it's worth and end the war, no matter if the conditions of the war will be horrible for Ukraine or not. They just don't give a shit. But Europe ostensibly should, especially Poland, should care about whether or not Ukraine ends up in a crappy deal or not. Especially Poland should be very interested in a strong Ukraine that can defend itself against Russia. But apparently not, because Poland says, yeah, we cannot send troops because that'll make Moscow angry. This is the most pathetic, cowardly stuff ever. There is a constant risk of hybrid attacks, and such attacks do occur. What do hybrid attacks have to do with sending troops to Ukraine? Nothing. Polish troops cannot prevent hybrid attacks. That's not how that works. Like this is just pathetic. Poland and all capable European countries should realize where they are in history now. Yeah, they should, but it seems like no lessons are being learned. Even at the cusp of the United States screwing Ukraine over, Europe still cannot get its act together. I'm sorry. Poland has been grappling with a migrant crisis since 2021. Oh yeah, like totally all the Polish troops must be on board for that. Totally, Poland must engage all of its military for a migrant crisis, quote unquote. That's why it cannot spare any troops as a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Every public library in my country and yours have high school books that could teach them the yeah. Poland has been grappling, blah, 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 with both Warsaw and the EU accusing Belarus and its ally Russia of orchestrating the situation by funneling people from the Middle East and Africa to Poland's eastern border. Last year, Poland introduced, like, Poland is literally leveraging a humanitarian crisis on the border not to support Ukraine. Is that where we're at? There's a migrant crisis, so we cannot send peacekeeping troops. Last year, Poland introduced a 60-kilometer exclusion zone along its frontier with Belarus, and it's building a border wall. Well, look at that. Poland is following the footsteps of Donald Trump. Kosiniak-Kamysz went on to emphasize that no country bordering Russia should participate in a potential stabilization mission in Ukraine. Especially those countries should do it. It's the opposite. Especially the countries bordering Russia should band together and create a substantial peacekeeping force to send to Ukraine. Like the opposite of what this guy is saying is true. The prospect of deploying European troops in Ukraine has gained traction recently after the US and Russia launched negotiations on ending the Ukraine war. On Monday, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the UK would consider sending troops to Ukraine to safeguard any peace deal. It's still like a consideration. It's still not treated entirely seriously. However, after the US-Russia talks in Riyadh, the Saudi capital, on Tuesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov flatly ruled out any such possibility. Of course, Russia does not want a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Russia wants Ukraine to be toothless and defenseless. Like, Russia's opinion on the matter should not be even taken into consideration. Like, of course, if Russia had its way, Ukraine would be demilitarizing right now. Ukraine would be left demilitarized and preferably with an installed Russian puppet at the helm of the government. Like, come on. Let's be serious for a moment. For a moment, let's pretend that we're all taking this seriously. And, like, if this is going to be the attitude of Europe towards Ukraine, then it's all lost. It's all screwed over. The US has checked out. The European Union just cannot get its act together. Ukraine is abandoned, effectively. It's like talking to a murderer of. It's like taking a murderer's opinion on whether their victim should receive care for stab wounds. Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, basically. Like, of course, Russia is going to be against any peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Are you kidding? He added that the Kremlin would strongly oppose the deployment of European peacekeepers. Well, then Ukraine has no security guarantees whatsoever. NATO out of the question, US troops out of the question. Russia says European troops out of the question, so no troops, and it wants Ukraine to be neutral and demilitarized. So what does Ukraine have that would stop Russia from just attacking again? Nothing. Nothing. US just checkmate Europe, basically. Yeah. I mean, on the other hand, let's not take away the agency of the European Union itself. I would say Europe is doing very well in checkmating itself with its idiotic way of handling its own security. He added that the Kremlin, blah, blah, blah. Lavrov said, "We explained today that the appearance of armed forces from the same NATO countries, but under a false flag, under the flag of the European Union, or under national flags, does not change anything in general. Of course, this is unacceptable to us. No security guarantees are actually acceptable to Russia. It's time to wake up to that fact. There should be strong negotiation. Ukraine will be given security guarantees against you whether you like it or not. You can protest, you can whine, you can bitch, you can complain, but if there is no security guarantees for Ukraine, there is no peace deal on the table. That's a non-starter if you cannot agree to any security guarantees for Ukraine. But it seems like that's not gonna be the entry position into the negotiation, which is a bit disappointing to say the least. At least a little bit disappointing, wouldn't you say? So here we are. We are where we are. Things are not going well for Poland's eastern neighbor. Things are looking to be pretty bad, actually. Pretty bad indeed. All right. What else? What else have we got? I got some bad news. I'm gonna be talking about Polish history briefly. We're going to be talking about Auschwitz briefly, the Holocaust. There's this saying that I like to invoke from time to time. It's the 11th commandment. It's called "Do not be indifferent." It has always been spread by a Auschwitz survivor called Marian Turski. I have listened to many of his speeches. He was a historian, very well-known Polish Jewish historian. He would always return to Auschwitz yearly to commemorate what had happened there. He would give, of course, speeches about the fact that a genocide can happen anywhere, that it's not something that was just specific to Germany, that it could do such a thing, that having the right conditions, it can happen anywhere. Auschwitz did not fall from the sky, he would say during his speeches. And do not be indifferent to injustice towards people, because once you start getting indifferent to injustices that happen to people, you are adding brick after brick to what could potentially become an Auschwitz situation. Oh, thank you. 50, I assume Norwegian monies. How are large media outlets covering this in Poland? I'm Norwegian, but following Czech media and Petr Pavel's government are pro-protecting Ukraine. I mean, that depends on the media, but most Polish media are pro-Ukraine, of course, so they will not look at this favorably, unfortunately. Unfortunately for us, it looks like Ukraine will be screwed. If Ukraine is screwed, then Poland is screwed by extension, but Polish politicians do not seem like we could actually take a look at a few Polish media if you want. I can type in a few of the Polish media outlets and I can translate some articles for you. Okay? We could do that. We could definitely do that in a moment, yeah. But now let's talk about a bit about Marian Turski. Marian Turski, the person that has coined the "Do not be indifferent" 11th commandment, has died. He is dead, unfortunately. Let's see. At the age of 98. Renowned historian and Holocaust survivor dies age 98. Let's see.
Marian Turski, the Polish Jewish historian, journalist, and Auschwitz survivor who fought against Holocaust denial, has passed away at the age of 98. Marian Turski's most famous words and an ominous warning rang out in 2020. During that year's commemoration of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, he said that the German Nazi concentration and extermination camp, quote, did not fall from the sky. The Holocaust, he warned, started with minor acts of persecution and indifference, but would eventually cost the lives of around 6 million Jews. He was deported to Auschwitz as an 18-year-old and later survived a death march and transport to another concentration camp, Buchenwald. There, he was liberated by Allied forces. He went on to become a historian and journalist, taking part in Martin Luther King's 1965 Selma March against racial segregation in the American South, and continued to be involved in Holocaust remembrance. He lived to see the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz last month.
Yeah, he took part in the commemoration last month, yeah.
Where he was among the guests of honor.
His death was announced by the Polish weekly Polityka, where he worked as an editor for over 70 years, heading the history section of the magazine. Born Moshe Turbowicz on June 26, 1926 in Druskininkai, present-day in Lithuania, to a Polish Jewish family, Turski experienced the horrors of the Nazis' genocidal regime firsthand. During World War II, the Nazis deported Turski and his family to the Łódź ghetto, established in central Poland by the German occupiers. Crammed with 210,000 Jewish people, it was the second largest ghetto in Nazi-occupied Europe after the Warsaw Ghetto. In 1944, he arrived at the G death camp in one of the last transports from the Łódź Ghetto. In January 1945, as Soviet forces advanced, Turski survived a death march from Auschwitz to Buchenwald concentration camp near Weimar, central Germany. 4 months later, he endured another march to Theresienstadt ghetto in German-occupied Czechoslovakia, where he was suffering from typhus when Soviet troops finally liberated him. Most of his family perished in the Holocaust. A witness to history. After the war, Turski settled in Warsaw and became deeply involved in journalism and historical research. From 1958, he led the historical department of Polityka, where he remained a prominent figure till his death. In his mission as witness to history, Marian Turski traveled, or rather pilgrimaged, around the world for decades, Polityka wrote in its obituary. It added, "A man of extraordinary kindness, sensitivity, and warmth. He was always there. A life dedicated to remembering victims." Beyond journalism, Turski dedicated his life to Holocaust remembrance. So I don't think we have to read anymore. I thought I wanted to talk about this because I often quote this person. I often talk about this person's sort of worldview when it comes to things like genocide. I talk about genocide a lot on this channel. I talk about the history of genocide. I talk about various types of genocide that happened. And I think it is of most importance right now, the 11th commandment that he tried to spread far and wide. Do not be indifferent. Auschwitz did not fall from the sky. It happens, it just starts with this indifference. When discrimination is being implemented against certain groups, those discriminations start small. You might not even notice them. You might feel that it's okay, that it's not a big deal, that things really cannot go all that bad. And then it slowly escalates. And as we get indifferent, that group slowly is being prepared for extermination. And worse even, we are being prepared to become indifferent to that extermination. And I feel like the loss of this person is a big loss to the world. Like, the truth is that sooner or later we all die. Marian Turski was 98 years old, but it is a real shame that it seems like his message did not quite resonate enough with people to follow his plea not to be indifferent. We see far too much indifference in the world right now when it comes to suffering of people, when it comes to people being discriminated, bombed, murdered, and so on and so forth. We see far too much indifference, and I feel like we could all heed the words of Marian Turski and like the I think even more important than the person himself is the message of not being indifferent. It's just that's the most important thing to me. Like not even like even if you don't know who this person was, even if you do not know anything about Marian Turski, I think I feel like if the message can live on, then it's all worth it. And I just don't know if that's the case. Let me read the chat a bit. I still quite don't get it. Is this the US just being bitchy about Ukraine being ex-Warsaw Pact, ex-Soviet Union Republic, or is just stupidity that being bred in the US during previous several decades? It's more than that. It's not stupidity or bitchiness. It's Trump wanting to move the United States away from international law, order, cooperation, and trying to stabilize the world via a series of connections and relations, and trying to replace that with the United States being effectively an empire. Might makes right. We are an empire. We will get what we want, and we will get the best deal, and we will screw over anyone that gets in our way. That's basically what is happening. That's basically what is happening. It's not even America first. It's America empire. It's like Trump is screwing over Americans domestically. Can you really say America first when RFK is at the head of American healthcare? Is that really the America first policy? Like having the biggest lunatic in charge of the American healthcare? I would not say that it's America first policy, personally. It's a big world. There are people that probably never knew he even existed. Yeah, but I would hope that they would at least know about the message of do not be indifferent. And the world is indifferent, cowering and conceding to internal far-right interests, not addressing the refugee crisis, not willing to commit in Ukraine, and even worse, on Palestine. Yep, all that is true, unfortunately. Who knows? I don't know who's Marian Turski, but he sounds based. Yeah, he was great. Was hoping I would be able to talk to him, but I guess that will not happen. Even though I've met him a few times, I never had the opportunity to talk to him, which is a shame. What I presume is Nie bądź obojętny needs an English translation. It means do not be indifferent. It just means do not be indifferent. Yeah, that's what America First is. Fascist populism is never honest. They say one thing and always do the yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there is a book. There is a book. It's called "Do Not Be Indifferent." Yeah, that's right. It's a collection of his speeches. Actually, I have that book. I have it out back the house. I bought this book. I have not read the whole thing. It's actually not just in Polish. It's written in both languages. It's written in Polish as well as in English. It's a dual language book. It's written in both languages, English and Polish. It's divided. You have English and Polish in that one book, if we're talking about the same book. So yeah. So that's good. I just really wanted to talk about this person. I just really thought that it would be a great idea. What else? Serbia, Saudi, yeah, Trump or tariffs. Trump's tariff exposed Ukraine's steel industry to another war. So that's gonna be, of course, a screwed up situation as well. It's we are not in a good place. And I mean all of us, okay? Whether you live in the United States, whether you live outside of the United States, the situation right now is just not good. And I'm afraid that will just get worse. It'll just get worse before it gets better. As the United States healthcare will go to hell, as the world's healthcare will also go to hell because the United States will leave the World Health Organization taking 20% of its funding with it. So that's going to be fun. As trans people are losing their rights in the United States, as the wider LGBT is being attacked, let's not forget that gay marriage itself is being targeted. As humanitarian aid around the world is being frozen. Oh, there's a topic. There is a topic that I wanted to highlight today that sort of illustrates. I'm gonna go to some Ukrainian screen to be able to talk about this. The freezing of international humanitarian aid, the freezing of aid from America, US aid, has caused various NGOs in Ukraine that specialize in investigating and gathering evidence for Russian war crimes. That aid being cut means that they cannot do their job, that war crimes cannot be documented in Ukraine. Like, this just seems like it falls in line with the United States' entire policy of basically not caring about anyone or anything, basically screwing everybody over as long as the United States ends up on top, quote unquote. And I don't even I don't know what to say. People were so relieved at the beginning that, oh yeah, okay, it's just humanitarian aid, it's no problem. Ukraine will still be receiving military aid from the United States. Um, it's not that great that the humanitarian aid will not be received, but Then again, well, you know, just it is what it is. But what it actually is things like supporting the veterans, supporting those who were wounded in the war and cannot fight anymore, supporting organizations, as I've just said, that um, investigate and gather evidence for war crimes of Russia, which the world order that we see emerging, um, nobody will even probably care or will be able to enforce prosecuting Russia for its war crimes because it feels like this will end up in a peace that will be favorable to Russia and unfavorable to Ukraine. So no wonder the US would cut aid from investigating Russian war crimes if none of them will be ever prosecuted to begin with. I'm calling it now. And I'm going to be honest, the way that the peace uh, conversations are going, I highly doubt that the United States will come to Russia and say, hey, all those kidnapped children that you have, give them back. Give back the kidnapped children. Which means, and I'm not sure how much of this, it means that organizations like Save Ukraine might need to keep operating even should there be a ceasefire, should there be a peace later down the line. Organizations will need to infiltrate Russia and smuggle Ukrainian children out because I highly doubt that the international pressure will be big enough to actually force Russia to give back all those kidnapped children. That's also a reality of the situation that is not being discussed at all. I don't see any mention of the kidnapped children actually in any of the outlets, in any of the conversation about peace. There's no conversation of, hey, Russia must give back the people that it has kidnapped back to Ukraine. I guess along with territory concessions must come children concessions, right? Future Russian citizen concessions, yeah? I've never heard that Ukrainian steel is flooding US market. Can you get more details on that? We're gonna read the article. We can read the article about the steel. We sacked 1,700 people in the largest Norwegian foreign aid org because of US aid. Yeah, of course. Of course. There are many NGOs around the world that were depending on that funding. Now it's all gone. Oh, it's from the series I just made that shit up. And global pandemic was mishandled already with the US in WHO and the NIH actually following science and doing it. Yeah. Well, it's because the individual states were not following that science, and many of them decided that social distancing is not really anything that does anything, and that masks are worthless, and many other strange opinions that just made the situation worse. I think one of the countries that went through the pandemic the worst was Italy, hands down. Or rebuild maternity wards and hospitals. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see. The steel thing. The steel mill in a partially occupied region of Ukraine is a dystopian maze of flames, chutes, and tentacled pipes, vast enough to be a small city. Thunderous blazes of sparks flash above the open furnaces, where workers smelt iron ore into streams of molten metal day and night. The Zaporizhian Iron and Steel Works, one of Ukraine's largest steel plants. By the way, I bet some of you might not have known, but Ukraine's steel industry is its second biggest industry after agriculture. Its largest plants lie in the country's industrial east, where Russia's freer invasion of its neighbor threatens to throttle production at any moment. Daily battles unfold along a front line of 40 kilometers away as the plant churns out materials for military equipment and for foreign manufacturers to use in cars, appliances, and construction. True. Morale is not as high as it was before. We're pretty tired here, plant survivor Serhiy Sivotsenko said, reflecting on the hardships. But there's no way to go back. The only way is forward. My grandfather used to say something similar. Like, what has happened. All we can do is move forward. That is, yeah. Last week, though, a second war came to the doorstep of the hulking factory complex. The possible trade war that U.S. President Donald Trump has provoked since returning to office 4 weeks ago. Trump imposed tariffs of at least 25% on all imported steel and aluminum, a decision that could hurt an essential sector of Ukraine's battered economy. So basically, President Donald Trump is, in a weird twist, sanctioning Ukraine in a way. That is pretty interesting, isn't it? Ukrainian government officials and business leaders were shocked by Trump's February 10th executive order, which underscored Ukraine's growing precarity in relation to its most important Western ally. The president maintains that imposing a variety of tariffs will level the playing field in international trade and make U.S. factories more competitive. The steel industry's share of Ukraine's gross domestic product has dropped by almost half since Russian troops entered the country, and steel exports are substantially below pre-war levels. The Ukrainian Steel Association warned that if the U.S. import duties take effect as planned on March 12, it would cost the weakened industry 2.4 billion hryvnias, $58 million in revenue, and the government 1 billion hryvnias, $24 million in taxes a year. The tariff order was not the only action by the president or his administration to cause alarm in Kyiv last week. Trump signaled changing winds in U.S. policy by having a direct call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, so we know everything about that call now, whom former President Joe Biden and other Western leaders had tried to isolate since Putin sent troops to Ukraine. Trump also said he would probably meet in person with the Russian leader in the near future, heightening concerns that Kyiv would be left out, which is happening right now. There are peace talks, and Ukraine has not been even invited to those peace talks. So left out, all out of, or undermined in any ceasefire talks. Comments by both the President and U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth rejecting NATO membership for Ukraine further reinforced the fear that the country no longer had Washington in its corner, which is true. I'm sorry to say, but Ukraine does not have the United States in its corner. It is absolutely a true statement. It's a true statement of fact. Okay? Essential support to Ukraine. So there we have it. We don't have to read the rest. We know, we get the gist of it. We understand what's happening. Trump is imposing tariffs on Ukraine, hurting its economy further. It's ridiculous what is happening. The OG Nazis were impacted by countries not wanting to sell them steel. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is shooting themselves in the foot by stopping the supply chains of steel for key industries. Well, you know what it is. You know how it is. it is what it is. Ukraine seems like it will be thrown under the bus by the United States. I'm going to repeat one more time. It all depends on what Europe will do now. It all depends on Europe. Okay? It all depends on Europe. Oh. Oh well. Biden was the only barrier preventing this from happening, but Biden just had to be a genocide enabler in Gaza. Well, now there's gonna be an ethnic cleansing in Gaza. Importing tariffs after achieving sufficient domestic manufacturing is one thing, but the US doesn't produce enough steel for its own use. I mean, technically speaking, you introduce tariffs in order to help a budding industry out. Like the United States has done it historically by nurturing an industry at home, imposing tariffs on the same industry from the outside. So it only would make sense for the United States to tariff, I guess, for the time being, steel, if the United States would substantially invest in domestic steel production. Then it could lift the like once the U.S. steel gets even remotely competitive, it will lift the sanctions. Well, I'm not against the idea that the United States should have some sort of a domestic base of production of steel in case something happens and it gets cut off from outside sources of steel. But Trump just fundamentally does not understand what the purpose of a tariff is. And we are just living through the results of that. The result of that is that Ukraine's economy, which already is not in great state, like Ukraine's economy already is not in an amazing shape. It relies on aid to sustain itself. And right now, the US is basically dealing a blow to Ukraine's economy via this tariff. Russia will be exempted from Trump's tariffs, I bet you. We'll see. Yeah, true, but there is no such push, and it's a generational project in which the whole society needs to be involved, including the education and social services, which are being... Oh, yeah, it's true. Social services are being dismantled, among many other things. I ain't seen Trump signing executive order, invest in domestic steel manufacturing ASAP. I mean, of course he won't, because he does not know what the purpose of tariffs has been and I guess is. He just thinks that a tariff is a way to tax other countries, to give you money, and then you can lower taxes domestically and you just profit. That's it. He doesn't understand that a tariff fundamentally was just this protectionist policy in order to help domestic industry grow. He thinks that he can force, in fact, he thinks that he can force other industries, okay? He doesn't want to invest in domestic industry because his logic is if the foreign industries will be tariffed, they will just all move to the United States to avoid the tariffs. That is basically what he is thinking, because he keeps saying, if those countries build their factories here in the US, they will have zero tariffs. This is such a ridiculous expectation to think that companies from all over the world will just move all their manufacturing to the United States because tariffs. Oh no, tariffs. How scary. Those scary, horrible tariffs. It's silly. It is ridiculous. But what are we going to do? There is not much that we can do about it. In fact, I would hazard to say there's basically nothing. Oh yeah, there was a topic that I wanted to talk about as well. Oh god, I hope I still have it up. It's actually pretty interesting. Let me find it. I want to... where is it? I'm gonna Google it. AP News, Egypt is developing a plan to rebuild Gaza that counters Trump's proposal. So, it's countering Trump's call to depopulate the territory. The most hollow and self-serving of oligarchies, because even Putin and Hitler reined the oligarchs in for key interests of the state. So basically, it's interesting to observe some of the countries that Trump is hoping will take Palestinians in. He said, oh, they say one thing, and I'll just make them all take those people in. We're going to empty it, and we're going to rebuild it as a resort or something. He didn't use the term resort, but he just said that he will rebuild it as a beautiful place for the citizens of the world or whatever. Something like that. It's going to be great, prosperous, and bring in a lot of money. And immediately countries like Egypt and Jordan have refused. They said, we'll absolutely not take Palestinian people in. We will not go along with your plan of ethnic cleansing. 2 million people, Trump just wants to effortlessly move across the Middle East and I guess put them in a really nice place. And Egypt goes a step further. Egypt just decided, yeah, we're going to develop a plan that is against that plan of yours. Okay. Doesn't that conflict with the Zionist idea of Israel being Israel? Of all Israel being Israel? Yes, Gaza is in the US. Yeah, Trump wants to make Gaza into basically United States property. Cairo, Egypt is developing a plan to rebuild Gaza without forcing Palestinians out of the Strip in a counter to President Donald Trump's proposal to depopulate the territory so the US can take it over. Egypt's state-run Ahram newspaper said that I think it's Al-Ahram said that the proposal calls for establishing secure areas within Gaza where Palestinians can live initially, while Egyptian and international construction firms remove and rehabilitate the Strip's infrastructure. Egyptian officials have been discussing the plan with European diplomats, as well as with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. According to two Egyptian officials and Arab and Western diplomats, They are also discussing ways to fund the reconstruction, including an international conference on Gaza reconstruction, said one of the Egyptian officials and Arab diplomat. It's so sad that Egypt, that is a country that is pretty hostile to the Palestinians, has been historically, is going about this so far better than the United States. Trump's solution is just ethnic cleansing. The officials and diplomats spoke on condition of anonymity because the proposal is still being negotiated. The proposal comes after an international uproar over Trump's call for the removal of Gaza's population of some 2 million Palestinians. Trump said the United States would take over the Gaza Strip and rebuild it into a Riviera of the Middle East, though Palestinians would not be allowed back. So yeah, destroyed the Arab Spring in Egypt. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. But you know what? Egypt is doing a counter proposal to Trump's idea for Gaza, and I'm just curious as to what Trump's reaction to this will be. How will he deal with Egypt putting forward such a proposal? Will he try to threaten Egypt? Will he try to pressure them out of doing anything? Is that going to be the modus operandi as a response to this sort of thing? I will see. Right now, the main point that I want to drive home is that not only is Egypt refusing to take in the Palestinian people, it went further as to create a counter plan to Donald Trump's ethnic cleansing one. And I think this will be very interesting to follow. This will be a very interesting topic to follow and to see what the reaction of the United States will be to this exactly. Right? Right. Oh, I'm feeling so... For some reason I'm feeling really out of it. I'm feeling really tired. How is everybody right now? How is everyone? I'm chilling. I knew Trump would win the moment he allied with Elon Musk and is attempted. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean Trump is not much better. Trump is just rambling as much, but just oh my god. I'm sorry. Wasting billions of gallons of water is being framed as giving people unlimited water. Like this should be very concerning to anyone with two brain cells to rub together. Right, this should be like the fact that people thought Trump would be better on Gaza than Biden. It just baffles the mind. It just baffles my brain. I don't know. It's shocking to me. Shocking and appalling. Unlimited water is the best water. I know. Unlimited power. Come here and... News is sad. Also have a stomach ache. What happened? What happened, Greater Rain? The LGBT people are getting attacked more and more in Europe, so pray for me. Zelensky has postponed his trip to Saudi Arabia amid US-Russia talks in Riyadh. Poland urges US to cooperate with the EU and Ukraine on a just peace. That's not happening. Ukraine and Europe, for that matter, are being actively excluded from the peace talks. So I'm just afraid that's not happening. Okay, it's very wishful thinking. NATO high readiness forces on Ukraine's doorstep ready to deploy. NATO's British-led Rapid Response Force is ready to be deployed if needed, a senior commander has said after UK Prime Minister signaled he was ready and willing to put British troops on the ground to enforce a ceasefire in Ukraine. Why it matters. Starmer said in an opinion piece published in UK newspaper The Telegraph on Sunday that contributing a British force to help maintain a possible ceasefire agreement was not something he took lightly. Sweden has indicated it would consider a similar move, although other European countries quickly ruled out contributing troops, which is pathetic and weak. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the deployment of such peacekeeper forces in Ukraine would be completely unacceptable because, again, a Ukraine that is able to defend itself is simply unacceptable to Russia. It should show to anyone that NATO and the ARF is agile, it's responsive, and it's capable. The drills sweep across land, sea, and air in several locations, including Smardan, an expensive training ground on the edge of Galati, a town in eastern Romania. We'll see. Right, U.S. participation in the exercises was never anticipated. The drills coincide with the Trump administration telegraphing very clearly to European NATO members that Washington expects more from them on defense. And here it says that the US is planning to possibly withdraw from the Baltics. So there you go. Is Starmer the biggest cowardly cock in modern politics? Will totally do it. And I am Abe Lincoln himself. Starmer is Tony Blair, Freakonomics right-winger, LARPing a labor leftist, but without testicles. Greece included? No. Alright. Oh my gosh. Now I will give you a poll because I love my polls. I love democracy. Now I will more politics game. You will decide what I do. You will decide my fate. Go to sleep. Stardy and cat. Alright. Alright, let's see how many of you 10 people will vote. Vote. Vote, or else I will destroy you. TLDR, Ukraine is cooked, Palestine is cooked, and so are the rest of us. True, we're all cooked. Game and politics are gaining like a draw. Game is winning in the side chat. So let's wait for some more. It's only 4 people have voted out of 10. Only 4 people out of 10 have voted. More people must vote. More people must vote, okay? Or else. Game. Okay. Game is winning. You the tiebreaker if no one else votes. Someone voted. Am I the only one inside chat? I'm afraid so. So we're gonna play a game. Okay? We're gonna play the best game ever. Which is this. I'm gonna play a bit of this and then I'm going to sleep. The forest. There's Dr. Johns is not here. You wanna play the forest without Dr. Johns? How can you? How can you be so cruel? How can you be so cruel as to exclude Dr. Johns and Emily S for that matter? Disc, 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 okay? Disc, disc, disc. Disc, disc, disc. Excluding Dark, where Dr. Johns. I am selfish. We should all strive to be selfless. Like Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Oh, hello, Almeli. Oh, Dr. Johns is still not here. Dr. Johns is still not here.
The lift is this way.
The lift is this way. Which?
Antioch. We are in position.
Which way is it?
I'm sending the lift up now.
What a left. No first for me today. Well, where's Dr. Johns? You ask him. Him. Where's the lift? Where's the lift? You know, where's the lift?
Orcs! An entire horde!
Orcs.
Hold the lift. We have orcs inbound.
Space Marine. I'll go there, Space Marine. Oh. Space Marine. It's really hard. The second game is here now. I'm gonna kill you, Space Marine. There you go. Kill them, Space Marine. The adventure. I mean, it is a bit ironic that I'm killing orcs right now, isn't it? Just saying. Just saying. Alright. Space Marine. Oh, get in on Steam. Also consider joining Hazard or Flashlight and donating or subscribing. Alright? Help me. Help me survive in these upcoming times. Help me survive this ending. Wait, my shield was up. I'd rather get in a Google game. Oh my god, that was... What the hell?
The lift is this way.
I'm gonna die one of these days because of that chair.
Corporal Antioch, we are in position.
You're gonna feel sorry for me, okay? You're gonna feel sorry for me when I die because of that chair. Also, why didn't my thing work? I should have been able to do that thing.
Orcs! An entire horde!
Orcs.
Antioch, hold the lift. We have orcs inbound.
Hey, I died.
It's worth dying for.
I'm very tired. Maybe I should go to sleep after all. More politics is winning out now. When I started just as I started the game, suddenly people just switched to more politics. This is not. This is outrageous. It's not fair.
I'm sending the lift up now.
Oh my goodness. Chase, I don't know if I have it in me to do another topic. I'm going to bed? Oh, you're going to bed. I'm being abandoned by my viewers one by one.
Hold the lift. We have orcs inbound.
Yeah? You know, sometimes people just get discouraged. And you cannot blame them for it. Space Marine. Oh, okay. Now I get it. Now I get it. There we go. There we go. What are we waiting for? All right. Power Axe. The Power Axe is sheeted in sparking power field, delivers devastating blows, able to crack open heavy armor. Is the Power Axe any good, or is the chainsaw better? I have no clue. Oh.
Corporal Antioch?
Yes, my lord.
We have word that an Inquisitor is in the Manufactorum.
Yes, Lord Drogon.
Yes.
We have not seen him for several days.
Lord
Has the
Logan.
Liberation fleet arrived, my lord?
The fleet is still en route, Corporal. The Ultramarines are here as a vanguard, to cripple the enemy and secure the most valuable assets.
I see.
But the facility and its titans remain secure.
All I can say for certain is that no orc has breached this gate, my lord.
Contact Lieutenant Mira. Her unit is establishing a bastion in Hab Center Andres, and your support craft now have a viable approach from orbit.
What of the Colonel and his staff?
They did not survive.
What of the Wookiees? What of the assault on the Wookiees?
Here we are, my lord.
My thanks.
Where are we? The hell are we? The hell are we supposed to be? Oh, yes. We are where we're supposed to be.
Oi,
killing.
Clean, guardsman.
Reload. Burp. Are you excited? Can you even hide it from me? Your excitement for the future? This is the future that we're heading to. We're gonna be Space Marines, and the glorious US Empire will span to the world. The Empire of Mankind. Imperium. With Emperor Trump being the fueling hyperspace travel and stuff. How's that?
Be not concerned with events beyond these walls. Work, focus, meet your quota. Increased productivity gains high favor from the machine.
Wow. Nobody appreciates my super cool humor. Nobody.
Titan Invictus seems undamaged at least.
Titan Invictus seems unused, you mean? Is this invasion not enough to bring out the War Titans?
It takes hundreds to get a War Titan operational, Sergeant. Without them, it sits idle.
Wow. Sounds like a U-Pro. Sounds like a skill issue. Isn't it a skill issue? I think it is. I think it is. Skill issue. Saving content. Open door. We will finish this game one day.
Captain, this is an Augur station. I can scan for the Inquisitor's life signs.
Access authorized.
Access denied.
Identity confirmed. Drogon. Ordo Xenos.
Joe Rogan.
He's in this wing of the Manufactorum.
I read alien signals throughout the facility, and a large number converging on the Inquisitor's location.
Make Emporium great again. Find Joe Rogan is your objective. Find him, or else it'll be bad. It'll be bad. Oh yeah. Oh god. Oh man. Oh man. Oh boy. Oh gosh. Ah gee. Ah gee. Oh shucks. Oh gee. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Whoa, oh boy. Yeah. Continue. Will no orcs attack us here? On this slow, giant, moving platform? Usually, that's the prime opportunity to get attacked or something.
Leandros, can you use this panel to contact our other forces?
Not directly, but I can boost Vox range.
Do it.
Do it. Do it.
Access authorized.
Do it.
Ultramarines chapter.
Activate order 66. And do it. I am
Ultramarines, this is Captain Titus. Are you receiving?
Captain, this is Sergeant Midas. Squad Solidus is on the ground and making
Sergeant
for our
Ned.
objective.
New orders, Midas. We are at Manufactorum Ajakis and have located the Titan Invictus. I need Solinus to come secure the Invictus.
Manufactorum Ejaculatus.
On our way, Captain. Midas out.
Yeah. I am I'm very immature. Sergeant Mid. Ejaculatus. Whoops.
Pipes. The orcs are in the pipes.
Space Marines. Space Marines. Space Marines. A lesser mind would say that this game is a very repetitive, but person of my caliber can recognize that no such thing is the case, okay? No such thing. Besides, it's the perfect game to stream and discuss things with the audience. Like, what food did you eat today? What did you do today? Did you jog? Did you eat a pancake? All the important questions in life. Have you eaten pancakes today? Where we go? Oh, slowly coming down, of course. Slowly. I'm gonna go to sleep soon. I feel like I'm sort of out of it. And I have to wake up in the morning and walk the walk.
Repeat authorization.
Inquisitor.
Prepare the power source for immediate release.
1 moment.
Faster. Disregard all safety protocols.
More! 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 Is this the Inquisitor?
Inquisitor Drogon?
I am Drogon. And you are?
Captain Titus of the Ultramarines. We received your distress call, but you seem to have weathered the enemy's attack.
I am soldier and scientist, both, Captain.
What is the status of the experimental device?
The power source is running the entire manufactorum from the generator room.
This device is a fuel source, not a weapon?
It is a complex device and an unstable one. If the orcs find it, they'll try and take it apart. It could detonate with enough force to destroy the entire planet.
Then we must move it to safety.
And for that, Captain, I need your aid. This way.
Oh god, oh no.
Inquisitor Drogon.
Those
I'm a
Zergs are so
psyker.
evil.
My psychic abilities are controlling the bleeding.
Very well.
Wow. My psychic abilities are doing. Oh my, look at this.
You try to steal my titans? Steal my loot? I'll rip your guts right out.
Attack on Titan.
The orc himself. I'm gonna put your head on a spike, Space Marine! Kill this Space Marine! Now!
Yeah, the axe is good. Let's see how the executions look like with the axe. Not as more.
It's a fight now!
It's a fight, Space Marine. for sure a Space Marine. What you gonna do, Space Marine? When I come for you, Marine. Space Marine.
Aye, the Orc has a scent for us now. Damnable creature! Had he not blundered onto this world?
But he did, Drogon.
Space Marine recognized. Full access granted.
Plasma pistol unlocked. The MK free Sunfry plasma pistol fires balls of superheated plasma. It can fire quick shots and powerful charges. This weapon permanently replaces your bolt pistol. Hold, 30 fire. 30 fire, hold.
There. You must get to that lift.
Got a new weapon, plasma pistol. It's infinite ammo. Okay. What am I supposed to do? Which ensure myself. Oh, okay.
My boys want to give you a proper greeting!
What's this? All right.
How much deeper does this facility go?
We are very deep.
Manufactorum? 5 deeper. The whole generator room is actually suspended above a venting shaft.
Suspended?
Yes. In case of catastrophic overload, the whole room can be shunted away into the depths. Ah, yes, here we are.
Colder than a spaceman's smile in here.
Yes, a byproduct of the device's functioning.
All right. I think that's it for today. So I'm gonna raid into somebody, and I'm gonna go to sleep. Okay. Who are we raiding? I guess Philippe Auguste is not here anymore, so I'm gonna raid into. Oh my gosh. Vegcom. All right. I'll see you today, which is tomorrow. I'll see you later. See you later, Vader. Bye-bye.